In the Paradise Syndrome, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy pay a visit to a planet that's doomed because of a deadly asteroid heading towards it, and they're going to try to stop it. But first, they thought they'd look around. Then they discover there's this tribe of Indians there. How can that be? So they also find this obelisk, and it has a strange writing on it, and they're like, oh, wow, look at this. This is something. Looks to have the signs of some advanced technology, and we're not really seeing any evidence of it developed on this planet. And then Spock guesses, hey, there's probably the superior race that collected cultures of people that they deemed endangered and seeded them on other worlds. So, and then McCoy says, gee, I always wonder why there's so many humanoid-like people out in the world. And it's a line to give an explanation for it because, just really didn't have the budget for alien people. And even if you did, it would just be, rubber things on their noses and foreheads. They'd all still be human. So this is an idea, at least in the original series, about why this is. Later on in the Next Generation, they do this really good episode, which explores it even more so than just alien seeding cultures that they deemed endangered. So here they says, oh boy, the cowboys are being cruel to the Indians, so they picked them up and took them to this planet. Now, I don't, if you can think of the time differential between that, I mean, why would they still be living like that? They would have developed in that time beyond just that, but well, yeah, whatever they did. But then again, you can say, well, the expanse of time over space is not all the same. But then you would think the aliens had warp. Well, whatever. But then it says, well, they look like they could be a Native American tribe, but then you could leave it open that perhaps it's from some other world that they forgot they seeded and they developed the same type deal. And so I don't know if all the other planets they've been to, the ones that was the Roman Empire never fell, and the other one where they basically had Nazis on it and all that, they're all humans that were dumped on that planet by some aliens. I don't know, but it's an attempt at giving some amount of explanation as to why most of the alien species you find on Star Trek are just people you run into at the grocery store. So, but the ultimate story here is Kirk stumbles into the obelisk and gets zapped by it, and he loses his memory, and he becomes a part of the tribe. They think he's a god because he came out of their holy place, the obelisk. Meanwhile, Bones and Spock had to beam back to the ship. They couldn't find Kirk, and they've got a certain amount of time, or they've got to try to stop the asteroid. So they go back in the hopes they can stop that, and then search for Kirk later. Meanwhile, in the time it takes, Kirk gets accepted into the tribe as their savior. Oddly enough, his name's very similar to Kirk. The savior's name is Kurok. And of course, the hot chick, Kirk gets her. But meanwhile, her ex-boyfriend is not happy. Not only does he lose his girlfriend, but Kirk becomes their new medicine man because they bring in this kid who's drowned, and Kirk knows how to save him. But even though he doesn't quite remember, he tries to remember. It's a very simple technique, really. I learned it in, I can't remember. So there you go. He's accepted as he came out of the obelisk, and now he does this. Well, they believe they've never seen this before, so it looks like he brought the kid back from the dead, and so they expect him to be their new protector and all this stuff. It turns out that the medicine men were all given a secret that they passed down from father to son, and there was something to do with the obelisk, and there was a means by which what the obelisk is supposed to do. It's supposed to be this defense mechanism against something like an asteroid. So you go in there and you activate the sequence, and it shoots this giant blue bolt that pushes asteroids away. I guess that's all it's for. I can't do anything about an alien invasion or anything. So But apparently, I forget the guy's name, but the original medicine man, his father had died before he shared with him the secret. So he doesn't know how to get inside the obelisk. But then Kirk comes out of it, so they, oh, he must be a god. And then, but the problem is, as the asteroid's getting closer, it's having atmospheric effects on the planet, and everyone's getting scared, and you're supposed to fix this, and he doesn't know how to get in there. So they decide to stone him to death. And his girlfriend, or wife at this point, gets stoned, and she's pregnant with Kirk's child, and all this stuff. And then here comes Spock and McCoy. Spock uses the mind meld to restore Kirk's memory, but they realized that the language on the obelisk, Spock had been studying it while they were trying to fight the asteroid, but it didn't work, and they lost all their power. Their warp power was fried, so they could only go on impulse power, so it took them, I don't know, 2 months to get back or something like that. And but the point of it is that the musical tones or notes would open the door, and it just turns out that saying Kirk to Enterprise is the exact notes necessary. And so that's what happened. It opens the door, and Spock figures out how to activate the obelisk, and it saves the planet. But Kirk's honey dies, and it's all very sad, and all of that. Paradise Syndrome it comes into mind because while they were earlier visiting it, Kirk was looking about and envious of the place. Yeah, it's so relaxing, you can get away from it all, and that he's feeling a bit stressed out and overworked with Federation duties and whatnot, and thinks, yeah, it'd be nice to just live in a place like this. And so that's kind of the life he has when he's an amnesiac. But of course, well, it's time to get back to the real world in outer space. And plus, well, girlfriend died, and that's that. And could have had another Kirk, running around, but no, that didn't happen. So there's criticisms here because of the Native Americans in there, and they said, oh, Kirk comes in as the white savior and all of that. Well, first of all, you could argue that it's not really a Native Americans, and it's another planet, and things like this did happen when European explorers went to different areas, not just the Americas and whatnot. And even in almost damn near into the 20th century, some people that were untouched by modern society, and they would see technologies and what they'd never seen before, and believed it was some kind of magic or godlike thing. So this does happen, and it just happened here. And it's not, the idea that the show is a racist show is absurd. Racism is a very intentional and chosen thing to do. The idea that everyone is subliminally racist, well, then there's no hope of even ever trying to address it at the end of that, if you really believe that. So it's just someone trying to sound smarter than they really are on something like a Star Trek episode for that sort of thing. So I just don't think there's any real validity to that as some terrible crime that the writers of Star Trek committed, and should be ashamed of themselves. But the only other aspect of it is, well, you could say humans were seeded on these other planets, but then that creates other problems. And certainly the expanse of time in between when that would have happened and to now, unless, of course, like I said, there's a temporal anomaly here in traveling through space that could explain it. But then it also is like McCoy saying, gee, I always wondered why there were so many humans. And that would explain the other planets they visited, and yet those planets are very vastly different. And so it's just a guess, really, by Spock, but it seems to lend that something like that must have happened, especially on this case where there's this device there to keep them safe from extinction-level events like an asteroid impact. So this Next Generation story that we'll eventually get to, and I cover that series, does it a lot better, where there's just a parent alien race that's sort of seeded all the others, and then they realize that there's a relationship between humans, Klingons, Romulans, and Cardassians, and all that stuff, I believe, in the episode. And that one's a little bit more interesting here, but still, the idea of it as being an explanation for the humanoid-looking creatures that they keep running into. it's a good effort on that. So anyway, there you go. The Paradise Syndrome from Star Trek. Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness, so many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.